back to Pints Politics with Representative Brandon Guffey, Representative Heath Sessions.
Yeah, man.
A week of furlough.
I know, sort of like spring break, wasn't it?
I don't know if I go that far. I felt like I was working more this week than I typically do.
Yeah.
So what's been going on with you this week?
I don't know, man. I can't find those Trump tennis shoes anywhere.
I really did not believe that was true. But I'm
real.
not. I would have bought some if I would have known.
You know, what did
Just
they go
to
for,
say.
like $400 or something?
Oh, no, I would not have bought some.
Yeah,
if that's
yeah,
what they
yeah.
went for.
I mean, seriously, was the intent to pay the legal bill in New York by selling shoes?
That's what I was being told. I'm finding all this out at the rally. So evidently I just don't follow the news as much.
And,
but according to Saturday Night Live, I'm getting me some of them Air Bidens, though.
Yeah, right. I tell you, that Shane Gillis skit was fantastic. Folks, if you haven't seen it, I'll try to repost to Twitter. But
Well, let's go ahead and get into our sponsors.
yeah, man.
Today's sponsors, of course, as always, Comer Distributing and today's beer. Heath, I'll let you explain today's beer.
Well, it's funny. I go to Main Street Bottle a lot of times because I'm usually right downtown shopping at least one day on the weekend. So the guy knows me now. He's like, oh, yeah. All right. Hey, man, you're looking for some Comer Distributing beer? I'm like, yep. It was funny this past Saturday. He said, man, we had a busy night last night. They drained us of a lot. I was like, well, it's got to sort of be a light beer. It's got to be a lager for Guffey here. So
For the lightweight.
So
I could try some darker ones. I have been surprised.
But yeah, we're drinking. It's an Amore Artist beer. It's called Springs Golf, and it's a lager, and tastes pretty good to me, man.
Yeah, I had a sip earlier. Tastes like a light beer, which is good.
Yeah. I mean, this is a beer that you could drink on a hot day playing golf or something.
Yeah. I'm not.
I know.
My golf lasts too long to start drinking on the course. I'm not one of those that has to have a drink on the course. I'm like downing Gatorades.
Oh, yeah. Man, I'll tell you what. Have you played golf lately?
Not about probably a year and a half.
Yeah, I got to play actually this past week. Went down to Florida for work.
Yeah.
And one of the guys that's looking at the work with me is a pretty big golfer, so he was down there for Daytona anyway. So I said, I'm flying in. You pick me up at the airport. We'll go look at the work. And he said, I'll go by your shop and get your golf bag for you. And I was like, oh, you want to play? So
Very nice. What do you shoot?
100.
Okay.
I'm out there trying, but I play pretty good.
I don't. I'll hit
week.
one or two shots.
Yeah.
That just surprise everyone. Like my chipping game is Happy Gilmore, like the slapstick with a 7-iron. And I actually hit those better than anything. I can hit a pitching wedge and a 7-iron better than I can hit anything.
Okay.
But at the same time, we did a captain's choice down at Myrtle Beach a couple years ago, and
That's my game.
We were the only team to score 3 digits, so they gave us disc golf passes. I think everyone just lies about their score. They have people saying they shot like 60. I'm like, what?
What's the point of making up your golf handicap, right? When people ask me, I'm like 30. They're like, oh, you can't be that terrible. I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty terrible. Yes. Yes, I am. But then the funny thing is then you go out with those people and they see a part of the only hole. They're like, oh, man, see, you're sandbagging. I'm like, no, man. I got lucky on that one.
No, I do start off pretty good. Like my first couple of holes are usually the best holes, but the back 9, I don't know. I start dropping my shoulder, start hitting the dirt.
I tell you, people say, hey, you want to go to the range? I'm like, why waste them all out there? No way, man. Let's do it live.
Yeah. Well, we got off track, but our other sponsor, 742 North, we're back in the studio.
Sans drummer this time. Oh, a little footnote to the drummer. For the 2 listeners out there, that kid was 5.
I know. And I was sitting there talking about
bad that, we're like ridiculing the drum noise and then come out, it's a 5-year-old kid. I mean, he's literally up to like our waist. And I'm like, he just happens to be like spinning the drumsticks. And I'm like,
killing it.
To the parents.
A 5-year-old.
This is who was banging on the drum. They're like, yeah. And I turn around and look at you. I'm like, way to go, Guff. Making fun of a 5-year-old.
I did say I'm going to feel bad if it's like a little kid or something.
That's right.
And then it ended up being a little kid.
Yep.
Just the way it goes.
But yeah.
So this week has been an extremely busy week for me.
Yeah.
I went down to Columbia Wednesday night. I had a Zoom call with the Moms for Liberty chapter throughout the state of South Carolina because they had asked me to explain Gavin's Law whenever they came to the State House, and I was in D.C. that week.
Oh, yeah.
So I ended up doing a Zoom call. Of course, it was later on in the afternoon. My ADHD medication wears off by that time, so I was all over the place. I hope it was informative with them, but answered a lot of questions.
Did you talk about that former Sherrall police officer that was charged?
I did not. I didn't get into that. I did talk about the prisoners that have been, I think we're up to 5 prisoners that have been charged for sextortion so far in South Carolina.
Yeah, former law enforcement McBee resident Justin Brian McKenzie was using sexually explicit images, I guess,
to get more images,
Yeah.
which is the way sextortion works
Jeez.
typically with females. I had someone send me a message this morning that just wanted to thank me for the implementation of Gavin's Law, that it helped because their child was being extorted,
Yeah.
and said that they reacted very quickly. So things like that always make you feel good,
Man, that's great to hear.
you know. So I did that Zoom call. Then I had to prep and work on my presentation. Woke up early in the morning, caught a ride to little airfield
Myrtle Beach.
in Myrtle Beach, and had a friend of mine's business partner pick me up in a helicopter. First time I've been in a helicopter, and
Yeah,
fly
how
me
was
down
that,
to Myrtle Beach. That was super cool. Like, I felt really, really bougie this week.
Yeah, right.
The
red carpet.
Yeah, so I got in the helicopter, flew down, which the fuel for the helicopter ride with splitting it because one of the guys is trying to get his pilot hours ends up being about the same as what I would pay for a rental car.
Oh,
So I was like, oh, yeah, this is a no-brainer. As soon as I land, I walk into...
all right, wait a minute, back up a second. So you did a helicopter ride from Columbia to Myrtle Beach.
Yes.
How long does that take in a helicopter?
I was about 45 minutes.
Man.
Now, I think he said we were going 165 miles an hour. But it's pretty funny. Like, we flew over Sumter, and you could see Air Force Base and everything. And I think I sent a text to Merle, and I was like, hey, over your hood. And he's like, I'm going to have Shaw shoot y'all down. What are you doing?
Yeah, wait a minute. Isn't that protected airspace, or did you have to?
No, I mean, you've evidently, I'm not a pilot, so I don't know how this works. We didn't fly over the airfield, but you could
Okay.
see it. So the helicopter was around, I want to say it was 1,000 feet
Yeah.
versus the plane, say, being 3,000
All right.
feet. So you could see a lot more through the helicopter.
Right.
And I'm amazed at how much swampland we have.
Oh.
Like, that
especially over
really.
there.
From that area, going from Columbia to Myrtle Beach, there's just so much swampland.
Yep.
So as soon as I landed, called an Uber to the hotel for the South Carolina Counselors Conference. Walked in there. I ended up getting Legislator of the Year
That's right.
from there for Gavin's Law. Gave a brief presentation. And then walked out, and I had an Australian film crew fly
Yeah,
in,
that's right.
and I had to do an interview with them for a few hours.
Now this is all
Thursday.
regarding
Gavin's Law.
Gavin's Law. Yeah.
Gavin's Law or sextortion and our digital crimes. One of the cool things is the producer, the Australian producer, used to work for Meta.
Really?
So, he was in agreement with a lot of the things that I was saying, and he was confirming a lot of the things that I was saying.
Yeah.
And he, saying that they do have the ability to stop this. How did they stop all the misinformation, disinformation so quickly, but yet they're not doing anything whenever these crimes are happening? So then I ended up.
What's going on with the COSA, with the federal?
There are 62 senators signed on now, including Chuck Schumer.
Okay.
So the
it
majority, it should be heard.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what happens once it gets to the House, but from my understanding, there's a big push against it in the House. And the push is actually coming from the right, and it's through the privacy lobby, which, as I said
Here we
before,
go.
Meta's forming a lot, try and make it seem like they have to have your age, or that they have to have your ID to be able to verify this, as proof that they don't. They just implemented saying that you can't contact someone under 16. Cohen, my 17-year-old, he can no longer access Marketplace on his phone. Now, his birthday on his Facebook.
Because that allows him to communicate with folks who are.
I think it's just because it's 18 and older. You're selecting like a contractual agreement.
Okay.
But they don't have any problem allowing you to hit I accept through the App Store to agree to their terms if you're 13 or.
Like, man, I tell you,
you know,
the world we live in, man, it's like, who's buying that BS?
I don't think anybody is, and I think that the point is that everyone's fed up, and I think Meta's starting to see it, or the social media companies are starting to see it. We're seeing it through legislation. We're seeing it through media.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, some people are starting to sue Zuckerberg himself. Which I don't know if that will hold up or not because you should be protected by the companies, but he is the majority shareholder and still making all the decisions, so that becomes a problem.
Yeah, I mean, just outright lying to people and thinking that they're stupid to buy it, you know?
Well,
I mean, it's the same thing whether it's, hey, Biden is mentally fit or
he's on the top of his game.
Well, yeah.
I love Jon Stewart's comment was like, well, do you have any of that footage?
Right. Oh, man. I tell you, it's great having him back. At least, isn't it like one night a week?
Just the comedy of it and pointing out. I've always appreciated that. I've always appreciated, say, a Bill Maher. I don't have to agree with you politically.
No.
But I appreciate whenever you can call out both sides. Unlike our daily night shows, whatever you call them.
Yeah.
Those people just seem to be target Trump.
Yeah.
Whenever he was in office. The people now seem to be a little bit more all across the board, like everyone's free game.
Yeah, man.
And
that's what makes it funny.
Right.
I mean, you know, yeah. So.
Well, I mean, we've got a group of legislators of us friends that really just talk trash to one another and pick on each other. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's what it's about. It's even funnier whenever you're saying something that's partially true.
Yeah.
And you're making them saying, oh, man, like, I can't believe they caught that or they called me out on that, you know? But then woke up Friday. I was a keynote speaker for the Palmetto Association for Children and Families. So that went really well. Spoke for about an hour and a half there.
Jeez.
Left, and as soon as I left...
Man, you must have went off teleprompter on that one.
Yeah. No teleprompter. It's funny. I can talk.
Oh, right. I'm the same way, man. I don't prepare remarks or anything.
I did one time, and that was opening for DeSantis. I wrote a speech, and then as soon as I get there, there's no podium. So I ended up throwing it off to the side, so I'm like, all right, never again.
Yeah. I think bullet points,
you
know, just to make sure you're hitting those, you know, whatever you're wanting to talk about, just as reminders, because you can verbally get in a ditch.
Yeah.
You know, you start going down the road, you're like, damn it, I didn't mean to get down here.
I remember our first day in Columbia. Mm-hmm. Gary Simrel came, and he gave remarks.
Yeah.
And it was like, 30, 45 minutes of talking. And it was, you know, he's quoting history. He's referencing things and talking about how we should move forward. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, I'm never going to be able to talk like that.
Yeah.
And to tie all this stuff together, I can barely remember people's names. How am I going to remember?
Well, he doesn't have a lot of practice, too.
Right.
I mean,
he'd been there for 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when we were putting Jay Lucas's portrait up.
And I went up to him, and I was like, so I need to figure out how you do these speeches. And he shows me a piece of paper, and it's got like 2 words written on it.
Yeah, 2 or 3 words. Yeah.
He's like, there's my speech. I was like, what?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Like a crumpled up Post-it.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah.
I can't be that person. But I did that. It worked out well, standing ovation. And then whatever I left from there, I immediately took an Uber back to the airport, hopped on. A friend was flying back from the Bahamas, picked me up, and flew into Rock Hill for Trump's rally at the Coliseum. As we came in, we ended up circling the Coliseum in the plane, which was really cool. But you could see how massive the line was. And this was probably about 2 p.m. Landed in Rock Hill. My son picked me up, drove straight there because my son and one of his friends wanted to go to the event.
Oh, gotcha. Did you get them in?
Yeah.
Like the side door?
Yeah, we went through the special legislators.
Is the 5-year-old
or
back?
not legislator? I think that's the church.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
On Sundays, they have a church service.
Yeah, I thought I heard a drum roll again. I was like,
Sounds like they're dragging chairs instead of stacking them, which I've learned, like, if you want to show how big of a Christian you are, you're the one who always stacks the chairs at the end of service, not drag them.
Oh,
so maybe we need to have a talk with them. I don't know what's going on.
Here we go. Old Judgy.
It's going to be a 5-year-old again. I know it.
Old Judgy Guffey.
But then we went into the rally, which I've never seen such a large crowd. I've never went to a Trump event. I've truly intentionally missed most of the things.
Right.
Whenever Trump's in town, it's like, oh, I got this going on, I got that. And even with the speech, I was like, yeah, there's no way I can get back. And I was told, no, you really need to try to get back. You're one of the few York County reps. Like, we need you there.
Yeah.
And then my son was like, I want to go. He's like, I don't care if he's going to be president or not. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, fair enough. And made it back, and we got in.
Yeah, so how I think that's the second time Trump's been at Winthrop Coliseum because
2016
when he was running,
or 15.
Yep. So I lived on the corner. So where Miracle Park is now, I lived at the house on the corner. And, man, there was cars parked all over the grass, all along Eden Terrace, all up and wrapping around onto Myrtle Drive in front of I was like, what is going on? And I didn't know at the time, but it was
Trump. Yeah, I mean, we parked at Clymer's house this time, walked through his backyard, took the back route in.
Yeah.
So it worked out pretty good.
So how was it?
It was good. I was extremely tired, worn down after all that going on. So I was kind of crashing.
Yeah.
And he talked for 2 hours.
Wow.
And there were many good points. There were many applause. I sat beside Congressman Wilson and Congresswoman Mace and Timmons, and I met Trump's pastor. He prayed with me. I cannot remember his name right now, but
where's he from? Florida or?
I don't know. I didn't get into all that. He said he was going to be in contact with me, though. But he was a great guy. He asked me about the less than 3 pin. That started the conversation, and then he started praying with me. And then I didn't go back and meet Trump. And after we left there, just went and
he's got
met
tiny
family.
hands.
I mean, his hands were huge, like bigly. I thought about saying that. Like, if somebody asked me, like, what was it like to meet Trump? I was going to be like, dude has the biggest hands in the world. But
who was that in 16? Was that Rubio and him?
Yeah, Rubio. Rubio tried to hit him back, and he started talking about his hands.
I mean, what?
That was during the no energy jab. And I actually liked Rubio, but Rubio tried to hit him back, and it didn't work. I mean, you had the Teflon Don. He's like another Teflon Don. It's like whatever you throw at him, it doesn't seem to stick.
Yeah. Or just no one cares.
Well, so the next day, yesterday, I ended up waking up. I ended up jumping on Fox News.
Oh, yeah.
During the primary. Woke up, took Callie to vote, walked him through the process, then came back, got ready for the Fox News interview. And it was myself and a new Democrat senator in South Carolina on there.
Who replaced John Scott, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Out of Richland County. And, I was trying to work on my talking points and everything else, but it was a very short skit. They didn't tell us. They just said from 12 until 2. So it's like I had to be ready at any time during that time period. But I was thinking we were going to be sitting on like a panel of a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And then they would just come to us and ask us a question here and there.
And this was Fox News, like national, right?
Yes. So that's my first time really.
They just gave you a 2-hour range?
Yeah.
Like the cable guy?
Yeah.
Hey, we're coming to your house,
Well, initially. Now, granted, I was so busy in Myrtle Beach. Like, they're emailing me and like, hey, we need you to send us your Skype information. We need us to send you your typing points. And I was like, yeah, I'll get it to you tomorrow. They're like, we're filming tomorrow.
Exactly.
And I sent them in the morning. Yeah. But, I mean, I just didn't have time to go through all that. I mean, I'm already not that organized as is.
Wait a minute. Fox News is asking for this?
Yeah.
Why do they care?
I guess they were just wanting to know. I mean, the talking points I sent to them, I didn't even go over.
Did you send them Did you ask them to prepare? You want all the prepared questions that they were going to ask you?
No, I didn't.
Okay, exactly. I would have said, it's two-way street, boys and girls.
And whenever they open it up talking about Trump's remarks bashing Haley. And the whole time I'm sitting there thinking like, oh, gosh. Like, I don't want to sit here and talk negative about Nikki or anything else. I just wanted to say it's great to have more than one candidate in the race.
And, man, anytime you get ambushed like that, that's the phrase that I always like to use is, you know what, Joe, I think voters are really asking, who's going to protect our border? Who's going to drive down our national debt? Who's going to balance the budget? Who's going to make that a constitutional amendment? Just change the subject.
You're good at that.
Well, I think people really care about those issues, not some setup by a guy named Joe.
The only thing I could do was turn it around to just talking about I couldn't believe how much excitement we had.
Yeah.
And I made the comment of Trump filling the entire arena, but Biden couldn't fill a high school volleyball gym, even if we spaced the chairs 6 feet apart. That's what I thought was going to be the zinger.
Trump's got that entertainment factor.
Yeah.
People just show up for the traveling circus that is. Hey, let me ask you. So there was some pretty big lines wrapping around the Coliseum out towards the road. Was there any food trucks or hot dog vendors or anything?
Well, there was people going around with shirts and stuff like that, but I didn't wait in the line. I wasn't, I don't know where all it went. I kind of cut through the line and walked through the grass.
I had a neighbor send me a picture of him with a bunch of guys who, were waiting in line.
Tailgating. And
basically.
Yeah, some of the people sitting on the floor were there at 7 a.m. Doors didn't open until 1. And the event wasn't supposed to start until 4, and it started maybe 4:30.
Yeah. Was it a bunch of, do these people not work?
It was completely packed. The
whole lower level of the Coliseum.
The entire Coliseum was packed.
Was it?
It wasn't just lower level.
I just saw, as it got up, it looked like...
They shut it off and then put speakers outside for the people still in line to be able to hear.
Well, at least he gave him 2 hours worth,
Yeah. And there was it's funny, I walked in and the Attorney General's right behind me. Yeah. And we're used to kind of going around metal detectors and stuff, being reps in places. But with that, you're not walking through, you're not getting by with anything. Well, Alan Wilson walks in and he's holding his arms out and they're wanding him. And I'm like, well, it's a big deal whenever they're having to search the Attorney General before he can come in.
That's when you snap a photo,
Yeah. I didn't do that. I'm not trying to make an enemy out of the Attorney General.
No, that's when you have fun with him and Gates.
Yeah. But so then we, after I did the Fox News interview, come out and you invited us to the Ruby Slipper event.
Yeah, man.
The gala or gala? Which way?
I go gala.
Gala.
But.
Okay.
Yeah, man. My, the Ruby Slippers Gala is to benefit Miracle Park. Obviously, that's a passion project for us. But, man, I had a lot of fun last night.
Yeah.
We're filming on Sunday, which is a little out of the ordinary for us. But you had busy Monday
on Friday.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a good night, man. We had a good mix of folks there. From Rock Hill, just
wide age range.
Yeah, and I had a lot of family there. I had a lot of aunts, uncles, in-laws, all those types of things. So.
I actually had Melissa's cousin from Charleston and his wife come up and were here. Yep. So that was kind of a surprise whenever we walked in.
Oh yeah.
Wasn't anticipating that, but always good to see some unfamiliar faces.
Yeah, and I think I want to say just during the auction where we did the live auction, there was 4 or 5. 6 things. And then afterwards, Chris Miller was doing the auctioneering. And he says, hey, we just want to go and ask anybody if y'all want to, donate. Let's go ahead and do it now. And, man, they started at $10,000.
Whoa.
And I was standing there. I'm like, uh-oh. When you throw out an auction item and no one's bidding on it? I thought that's what we were going to get. We got 4 people donate $10,000 right off the rip. Yeah, I think they raised over $100,000.
So who organized this, and are they for hire?
Hey, just call our buddy Chris Miller.
I need to do it for the less than 3.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So,
But it's such a great cause.
It is.
Explain
man.
what it's going to.
So Ruby Slippers benefits the Miracle Park, and also, here York County Disabilities, what we call Max Abilities.
Yeah.
So, it was great to see Terry Hagan and a lot of those folks who, this is their life's work, it seems like, and this is near and dear to us because of our son's been in Asher. And, we just love that park. So I think this money that we're being raised is for phase 2 specifically.
Yeah.
It's going to be another Miracle Field. I think Founders is big on that investment.
And, of course, we always have Comporium and some of the bigger
Williams
companies that put in. Even last time with the initial, David Tepper put in a significant, what was it, $500,000 or something?
Yeah, or $250, something like that.
Yeah. So that was, shocking. That's one of the reasons we were excited to have the Panthers coming into town. It's like, man, this guy's putting his money where his mouth is. He's giving it back to the community, and it wasn't just about the stadium.
I thought the Carolina Panthers thing was a true godsend at the time. I remember just thinking about, Asher, my son, deals with a lot of the brain stuff, because he has brain damage. And so, he goes to the specialist and the brain doctors and all those types of things. And everything that pro athletes are dealing with head trauma and those types of things, I thought it was going to be a great synergy of Carolina Panthers, maybe get a medical.
Bringing in the best doctors in the world.
And Winthrop having the history of a teaching school.
Yeah.
We could develop a special ed, brain, physical science. You know what I mean? Like all of those things could have come together on that project that's now just sitting there right off the interstate. So
disappointment, but we didn't get, regardless of what the narrative is, York County did not end up horrible on the deal. I think the city of Rock Hill, once the land sells, is going to be made whole, and that real estate's only getting more and more valuable.
Yeah. No, I think we'll get that figured out. So
yeah,
but yeah, it was a great night. Man, left my shoes in Columbia. So I had to go to my backup shoes, and I literally had a wardrobe malfunction. And my shoes were those foamy type. Yeah. Well, they're 10 years old.
Should have wore Ruby Slippers.
No kid. I almost bid on those things, by the way, but they weren't my size. Because if they were 10s, I was going to get them and switch out my shoes. But literally all night long, my shoes are falling apart. Both of them. Heels, sole, the whole deal just crumbling. And so that's why I had to try to stay put in one spot, and just let people come to me, because I was like, dude, if these things fall apart on me, I'm toast.
I kind of did the same thing. I just stayed outside in the smoking section.
But yeah, all together, great event last night, great cause. Looking forward to Miracle Park growing, obviously, and just being a part of our community for a long, long time. So
yeah, awesome park, awesome cause.
Yep.
And there's so many great causes with nonprofits. Like that's always the struggle.
Yeah.
We're always asking for help, and it's what cause is more important than the other, and they're all not there. But all right, so let's move on.
Well, so one more local issue. Man, do you see the Rock Hill girls basketball teams heading to the state championship, baby?
We've got a great coach there because, they've been killing it.
Yeah, man. When we have Chloe Hudson is a player on that team. She goes to our church, and man, she's amazing. She actually broke the single season 3-pointer. So she's made the most 3-pointers in a single season.
She's the Steph Curry of women's high school basketball.
And she's a sophomore.
Ooh.
Yeah. So look out for that name, Chloe Hudson. I don't know if she's going to play college ball, but man, she can step back.
She's got the ability to do it. This might be a Lady Gamecock. Might be seeing her.
Hey, man.
A lot more, I'm sure. Dawn Staley's always looking for some good talent.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, so good luck to the Rock Hill Bearcats girls basketball team down in Florence for the state championship.
Well, I've got. You said local. A couple things happened. We did the little short clip. We were experimenting with the clips.
Yep.
And what we did was about the signs. That got a lot of traction, caused a lot of momentum, and council brought it up last Monday. So it's something that they're looking in, as well as I have a bill that I am filing.
Well, and you also have
Tuesday.
A troll, it seems like, on our.
I have plenty of trolls. I'm used to that.
Well, now you've brought them over to the Pints and Politics Facebook page, because I don't even know if that person's real, but man, they loved going back and forth about the signs. And I was like, God, dude, we're just talking about.
Just so everyone knows, there are a couple trolls that I am extremely rude to online.
Oh.
And I'm intentionally rude to them because these are people that have went on to a post about Gavin and say there's a ghost in the picture or things like that. And so whenever they come on, I've got this one that's a drag queen named Jolene. I will bash her every single time that she comes on my page. Her, him, whatever the pronouns, I didn't ask, and I don't really care.
Yeah.
We'll get equal treatment regardless of what sex that they're identifying as or gender. But yeah, that's one of them. I've got a couple other ones that I'm just not putting up with.
Man, that's so funny. That takes energy, and I ain't got it for that kind of garbage.
A lot of times it gives me fuel.
Like, let people say whatever they want. You know, that shows volumes about their character, and I just move on. I don't.
Yeah, but you know me. I work off of emotion.
I do enjoy when you and someone get into it. You know, it's just like, really? Come on, Guffey, stop now. Nope. Keep on scrolling.
You'd think after 21 years of marriage, I'd learn when to shut up.
Right.
Like you know when to stop. But yeah, and a lot of times I know it sounds like an argument, and I don't think that it is, but I think even with the person I was discussing back and forth with on the Pints Politics, you know, at the end of the day, I was like, thank you for the conversation.
Yeah.
And it's just having the conversation and trying to make people, but it's very tough to do via typing.
Maybe
because
that's another.
You can't, and I'm sure whenever people read things that I type, they're reading it like in an angry voice or my emotional voice.
Right.
And that's not always the case.
Well, when you put all caps lock on it.
Oh, if I put the caps lock on, I mean the caps lock. You're going to get all caps, too.
Why are you yelling?
But we had that, and then another local issue came up just last night. I was informed that the candidate up in Lake Wiley, Mr. Litton, was swatted. Someone called a swatting situation on him at 4 a.m. And that is...
Was everything, I mean, what happened with that? You mentioned it as we walked in, but...
So from my understanding, a phone call was made. It looked like it came from the residence, from a child, of claiming that there was a domestic violence situation. So, of course, the police come out, speak to, Andy and his wife.
Okay, so they didn't beat down the door? They didn't have...
No, luckily, it wasn't one of those situations. But
Gotcha.
Too often,
you do hear
things like that's happening.
Stories.
And you'll hear people getting killed in their own house.
Absolutely.
Because SWAT doesn't know what they're walking into.
Yeah. I think Netflix had a documentary on a kid, who did this, like, repeatedly, and it ended up in a couple of homeowners getting shot.
This is one of those situations, whereas whenever people say an elected official, this is a guy who works for a municipality in another county. Like, it's not like
who's running for, what's he running for?
It's just a county council seat.
Okay.
He's one of 3 people in the race.
Gotcha.
Like, and you're putting your family at that risk. Like, that was my fear whenever everything happened to Gavin. If I wasn't running for public office, would he have been targeted? Mm-hmm. Because I didn't know what sextortion was. So in my mind, he's targeted just because, and then, of course, the sextortionists tell me they were hired by a political opponent and all this other stuff. So, and which was completely false, by the way. I don't want people thinking that that's what happened.
Yeah.
But that narrative, and it puts a target on you just because you're trying to run for public office and trying to be a voice for people. And that is sad, should never happen.
No. And, did that ever cross your mind? I know it didn't cross my mind when I was running for the State House. I never thought about, don't get me wrong, we had long, hard conversations, my wife and I did, about before I decided to enter the race. Mm-hmm. But I never thought about running for the State House seat would put my children in jeopardy.
Yeah, I mean,
I never thought that.
I've always had my public cell phone listed.
Yeah.
I think that's not gonna be the case anymore.
Yeah.
Because I don't want someone trying to spoof and make it look like, especially with AI and everything else now.
Yeah, right.
And I'm gonna make sure that my home address is not showing up on places.
Right.
If that means you're putting property in trust and everything else just to hide your assets so people don't do this crap to you. But I mean, whenever you're getting a target on you for no reason. But I never got fearful of my approach. And in my head, like, I'm just a badass. Like, I'm going to fight you if you come to my house. And, you know, I can handle my own. That might not be the case. But in my head, it's like, oh, I wish you would.
Yeah. I think there's a phrase, you know, mess around and find out.
Yeah. Like, that's always been my approach. So I hadn't really been in any fights since getting married, but I used to fight quite a bit before then. So it's like I'm just waiting on that opportunity to have a reason.
I tell you, it's when that happens is when I then really stiffen my spine and go to work. You know what I mean? Like, if I was running and someone had done that to me, that would only motivate me more.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, you know, law enforcement's involved in this.
Golly, man.
People think that they can hide stuff.
Yeah.
It doesn't hide that easy. So
right.
I'm sure something's going to come of it. I mean,
this is a county council race.
Yeah. For a county council was a very ugly race, even whenever I ran in it.
Oh, historically.
Like, it was.
I think here in Rock Hill or in
York County, yeah.
It does, man. It gets.
I could not believe it. I mean, the State House was bad, but the State House was more rumors.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't
the whisper campaign.
Yeah, it was more of that whisper campaign, which I don't do well. And whenever I'm one male running against two females, I'm not going to win the gossip game. You know what I mean?
Well, and, you know, trying to hold.
And yes, that was a very sexist comment. I'm aware.
Well, and also, it's never a good look either when you're going into a debate or a panel discussion and you're the aggressor, you know what I mean?
Right.
It doesn't paint you in a positive light too. So
well, and I have a hard enough time that myself. Like, I remember whenever I was on county council, I snapped at a couple of women that come up. Like, I got very defensive.
Yeah.
And I snapped at them and was rude to them whenever I shouldn't have been. Now, I went back and, you know, I apologized, and I hope they know my apology was genuine.
Right.
But I understand. I am more aggressive. I am working on it.
Yeah.
But I'm still not perfect.
I tell you, being raised by my mom, she was always big on never let other people control your behavior. You know what I mean? Never. That the minute you lose your temper, the minute you allow people to push your buttons, they're now controlling you. Go ahead and put your collar on, hook the leash up.
I think I was raised just the opposite, because every coach I had said channel that anger, and that's the motivation. So, like what I was saying before, like whenever I'm arguing with somebody online, a lot of times that is my motivation. That is my fuel that can get me out of that funk that I'm in. Even whenever Gavin died, I remember Kevin Madden, who works for York County, him and I would often have these arguments and debates all the time, which and I remember I'm struggling just trying to put things together. Can't quite, think straight or anything else. And Kevin calls me and we're talking politics, and it's supposed to be like a short phone call. Next thing I know, we're literally like, I'm shouting back and forth with him, and we're talking, we're having an argument over term limits and everything else. And then he gets off and he was like, all right, but he's like, I'm going to get off of here. And he's like, are you all right? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, I don't understand why this is so important. He's like, well, we've only been talking about politics for the past hour and took your mind off things, right? And I was like, yeah. And then afterwards I was like, you know what? As somebody that kind of understands how I operate, and to me, that's a good friend to just try and
it's therapy.
It truly did kind of get me out of that funk and got me going a little bit.
Right.
It helped me make it in the day instead of laying in the corner and just staying depressed the whole time,
And that's hard, man. Like, life goes on. You know what I mean? It doesn't wait for anybody. And you want to pay your respects, and you almost think like by moving on, you're forgetting. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I enjoy a logical argument.
Yeah.
I really do.
Oh,
I can agree with you, and I will still come at you with the opposite view to ensure you're thinking for yourself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we talked about this when we were talking about unemployment.
Yeah.
The bill. When what was it? We had a friend who said, "Hey, when did Brand become a socialist?" Just because we were having that back and forth about unemployment benefits, and then you vote for it.
Yeah, and I used to get texts and stuff, and it was always friends that would mess with me whenever I'm having arguments about something, and I'm playing that devil's advocate role. Like I'm in the middle of. What I found is if I play devil's advocate, and I'm speaking one side, you're speaking the other.
Yeah.
Regardless of what it is, we're going to get around to what my point is to begin with, and we'll end up on the same side, and you understand exactly how I got to that point.
Well, and I also think that. Part of this podcast, too, is letting the listener in or the voter or the constituent in to understand that, folks, this is not in stone. It ain't in concrete, right? Our thought processes and how we are understanding is dynamic.
Right.
What we know now versus what we're going to learn tomorrow changes how we look at.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's one of my fears with always trying to, put myself as or classify yourself. Like I feel like we fought so hard for equality. Now we're fighting towards segregation the way that we are, and I feel like we're doing the same thing politically. Like, oh, are you MAGA Republican or are you a fiscal Republican?
Or are you mega MAGA?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's different.
Are you the red hat?
Yeah.
Or are you the really, really bright red hat?
Right. I mean, but whenever I was coming up in politics, you had Tea Party.
Yeah.
And then you had your establishment, but it didn't mean the same thing. It meant the established Republicans that are going along what the party line is. And then you had the Tea Party, which is fiscal conservative, saying, hey, quit spending my tax money on stupid stuff.
Right.
And those were really the two differences. Now, the problem I have is, like, as soon as you disagree with one thing, people want to put you in this group.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, somebody sent me a message, one of our mutual friends, and I won't say the name, but sent me a message and said, glad to see you're on Team Trump. I thought you and Heath did everything together. I was like, no. It's nice to know to have our independent thoughts, and that's where we get.
Man,
and our districts are a little bit different, so we're going to represent things different.
Well, sometimes. And I enjoy, I'm not a big MMA guy, but Dana White, he's a big Trump supporter.
Yeah.
Right? But he's also a very big advocate for you vote for who you want to vote for.
Yeah.
And guess what? That's fine. We can go have a beer after.
The freedom is what I feel like I'm always fighting for.
Personality of if you don't vote for this guy or this woman, then that defines you. It's like, no, it doesn't.
It frustrates me whenever.
Being married for 20 years to the same woman, having 3 children and raising them the right way and being a business person, all of those things help identify me. Right?
Right.
My faith helps identify me. But you got to throw all these things in a bucket, right? It's not just, you can't take a snapshot and say, oh, because he voted this way, he's ultra conservative, or he hates women, or, whatever. Right. It's just ridiculous, man.
Well, it bugs me on this level. I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me about Congressman Norman, and I can't speak for him. But they'll call me and they're like, I can't believe Ralph is a rhino because he's supporting Nikki. And I'm like, this is Ralph Norman, who has always been the strong conservative guy. Yes. And now you want to call him a rhino just because he supports somebody that he came into the freshman class with.
So here's another thing too, man. If people don't understand, man, him and Nikki are friends. He has had a relationship in regards of serving with her in the House. When she was governor, I think she most likely supported him for his run. Right. You know what I mean? Like, dude, of all the things that you have got to understand is I respect that, like, about Ralph.
Yeah.
Man, he is standing
He's going to be loyal.
Yeah. I mean, if you go on to be governor of South Carolina, and I'm not going to do this, by the way, but if I became a senator and then you decide to run for president, guess what? I'm not saying you're perfect, but guess what? I'll be there.
Well, and ultimately, and that becomes my point, is I tell people, like, if I know your heart, I don't have to agree with you.
Yeah.
Because I can get to that point to understand and have that trust on where you are.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean I'm always going to agree.
No.
But like you and Clymer, like, I know your hearts. Like, I never really question where your vote is.
Right.
And if I do, I don't hesitate to come at you straightforward. Like, why are you looking at it this way? And y'all do the same to me.
Yes.
It's just frustrating
I
to
think
me
you
because
and I-
Ralph has always had a stranglehold, and especially within my district. And then all of a sudden, it's like people, just because he's not supporting Trump, got so.
right.
And at the time, I was supporting DeSantis.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're not bashing on me. Why are they bashing on him? And it was frustrating.
I love the fact that the Tea Party Nikki Haley is now, what did Trump say? That she should join the Democratic Party?
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute, bro. You were the one supporting Democrats, before you ran for president.
I had a post.
She was a Tea Party conservative from South Carolina. What kind of bizarro world are we living in?
It's Carolina.
I mean, it is freaking bizarro world. Like, what?
Yeah.
But, hey, as the world turns, baby,
Well, and that was one of the things that, being on DeSantis' team, I couldn't stand was the negative rhetoric sometimes, and sometimes just outright lies, like saying California and New York handled COVID better. It's like, come on now. No one really believes that. It's kind of like the Freedom Caucus rhetoric of 63 rhino Republicans chose not to punish doctors for castrating kids. Like, who in their right mind believes that garbage?
Yeah. Hey, so now that you joined Trump's team, can we get back? Can you get the sneakers?
I don't know.
You think maybe
I might try to find them.
I wonder if I might wear those things with a suit,
Yeah.
and go into the State House. I mean, they're kind of cool, gold with the American flag on it.
I'm sure the governor would let me wear them all the time. I am about to the point where I want to find a good, nice pair of sneakers that I can wear with suits.
Yes.
Or either my boots, because I'm sick and tired of these dress shoes. Like, they get worn out so quickly in Columbia.
Just know when you buy the those foam ones from Cole Haan or John C. Murphy, they've got a lifespan of about 5 years.
I can't wear them. They're like Crocs to me. Like, they make all the bones of my feet feel like they're like running together. Because I normally wear cowboy boots, or I'm flat-footed.
Yeah, me too.
So it's like cowboy boots or like hard Sambas or Gazelles or something that are just flat. Some Chuck Taylors,
All right.
We're way off topic.
I know, man. So let's get into a couple of things coming up this week.
Wu-Tang.
That's right. We have judicial reform. That's been a hot topic. I think that bill's going to be dropped. On Tuesday?
Yes, supposed to be dropped on Tuesday. I'm trying to mark on my list. And we kind of went over that on the last episode. So I think that's going to be a bigger talking point next week.
Yep.
And I'm interested to see if we get that in, we get it to committee, get it coming to the floor, that we're moving it.
Yeah.
If we can go ahead and move forward with these judicial races.
Yep. And again, we'll just do rapid fire. Another one was that I've gotten some emails about is us creating this police state. And I was like, wait a minute, what? So for the two listeners,
let me guess, Jonathan Hill wrote an email.
No, so we passed a bill was last year.
Yeah. Well, no, the one just come out of, you're talking about Jackson's.
Sorry, no. So we reorged DHEC last year, right? And so now during our legislative off season, there's been a lot of work being done on a staff and agency level to try to peel apart DHEC into two separate standalone entities, one regarding health and one regarding environmental. So
and mental health being a big issue, we sat down last year and we learned that there's a bit of crossover where we couldn't get help because of the structuring of the agency.
Correct. So we're trying to streamline that. So in that effort, I believe Senate Bill 915 was establishing the Executive Office of Health Policy. And so this is the troubling or concerning language, is basically what this bill is doing is striking the DHEC director out of South Carolina Code. And I believe that's 44-1-100. And that's the concerning language of code right now. Currently it says, let me back up. This bill is basically replacing the DHEC director with this new
health director.
Health director. And that's what this bill is doing. It's cleaning up all this
It's changing the title.
Well, there is existing state law right now that says all sheriffs, constables, health officers, police officers, blah, 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 will during, times of like we just experienced with COVID, would answer to or carry out directives of this health policy director. That is getting people thinking we're bringing in the World Health Organization, and they're going to start running the state of South Carolina.
But that language is already there.
Correct. We have been running under that state code for a while now.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
It just allows them legally. So if someone's having a mental breakdown, they're able to call the sheriff's department and say, "Hey, we need help with this. This is mental health, we're having this situation," and they go and help.
Yep.
To get them into the facilities that they need. But it allows that directive. And, whenever I first read that, as we were talking before, and it's like, whoa, yeah, okay, maybe we need to amend that.
Yeah.
And then you find out, nope, that's the exact language that was already there.
Yeah. Oh, I sent it to our sheriff and was like, hey, man, give me your feedback. Just want to make sure you're good with this police state language. But no, I mean, we'll continue to dig in. I've just recently, here in the past 48 hours over the weekend, been getting emails regarding this.
Yeah.
So we'll look into that and see, if there's any added language that, looks like it's a violation of, personal privacy rights, that sort of thing. We'll definitely.
There's something that'll be coming up. Now, staying in that, you've got a meeting coming up with MUSC.
Yeah, I've asked
Tuesday.
Our medical schools, MUSC, there's the medical school there in Columbia at USC, the premier Institute of Higher Learning here in South Carolina.
Don't make me spit my lager out.
And, but yeah, just trying to understand how we can better keep medical or aspiring medical professionals here in our state. So currently right now, there is an agency called AHEC, and they focus on addressing rural healthcare, and they have, I think, about $1.5 million of their budget goes to help medical students, in particular physicians, get loan forgiveness for their medical school, but they have to go and work in a rural part of the state.
Maybe they could use some of that lottery money that's not being spent.
Exactly. That's what I was saying last time. But so I want to meet with them, and that meeting after adjournment on Tuesday is just in that effort. We need more mental health professionals, and instead of just saying physicians, I want to
say mental health.
Yep. I want to clarify the criteria to allow healthcare professionals to include.
Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah. So we'll see. All right. So, yeah, I got some meetings Tuesday with the medical schools. So, medical school there at USC, and then also the Medical University of South Carolina down in Charleston.
The second best university in South Carolina.
Oh, here we go. So yeah, just trying to really understand how we do healthcare here in South Carolina, and how can we improve it, right? How can we hopefully ensure quality, the highest quality at the best price?
Yeah.
And wanted to sit down with the folks at the medical schools and try to understand, their pipeline of students. And I want to keep all the students who are graduating from our medical schools here in South Carolina.
Yeah.
I just think that with the trends in South Carolina that we have an aging population, healthcare is only going to be growing here.
And we have such a need.
Yep. And more folks are moving here. They're realizing that, hey, man, South Carolina's jam up. It's a great state to live in.
Where we are failing, I think, is the healthcare.
Yeah.
And the fees, or especially mental health.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
school. Well,
so
some
AHEC,
schools are great.
Yeah. So there is a state agency that you may not have heard about. It's called AHEC. It's okay not to know about it because I didn't know about it. And I'm on the medical subcommittee.
Yeah.
Hey, I asked people, staff-wise, hey, you ever heard of AHEC? And man, we just went through the CON reform and stuff. And no. I mean.
Well, government is too big, which brings me back to, protect my shores, deliver my mail, and stay off my lawn.
And, man, yeah. So yeah, I mean, we have a little bit of money that we budget every year for AHEC, and they use it to basically loan forgiveness program for physicians.
Why couldn't we just use the lottery money for that? Why do we have to add in additional funds for that?
No. That's what I'm looking into.
Okay.
That's what I want to do. We already have these funds. We already have the lottery that's pushing these funds into our coffers. Let's use lottery funds. If they're not being used, let's use them, even if it's recurring dollars, for medical school students who have graduated.
Well, a lot of times the language says you can't pay off debt. So you can provide it like as a scholarship, but you might not be able to pay off collegiate debt. So that could just be the legalese.
What it would be is through a grant.
Yeah.
And that's how you do it, where you reimburse something like that. I mean, our military is doing it now.
Yeah.
And so just exploring all the opportunities that are out there to try to keep medical professionals here in the state of South Carolina.
Yeah.
And so that's what I want to talk to them about, and just understanding for myself. I mean, man, there's so much to learn about healthcare. It's just it's not like going into Zaxby's and ordering chicken nuggets. You know what I mean? There's just
Agreed.
a lot. I would love the day that when you can walk into a healthcare facility or a doc in a box or something and see prices.
Yeah.
For a physical exam.
I'd much rather learn the judicial, like being on judiciary, than I would rather be on education or healthcare. I mean, I really like judiciary. To me, it's like, okay, just common sense can win.
Yeah.
But whenever it comes to medical and education,
right.
It's like I'm not the expert. I'm not the best example to come and ask. Like I pour super glue in cuts, you know.
Yeah.
Don't want to get my opinion.
Well, as long as you don't get stitches, it's not a recording. So, but yeah. So just again, personal. There's so much to learn, but these little tweaks that we can do can make the difference in helping kids go and say work at a hospital that's in a rural part of the state.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and we need that.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, I've got one bill. I guess it kind of relates to medical. My tattoo bill, 3891. Filed it last year. It's bipartisan, or should I say tripartisan, because we got Freedom Caucus, Republican, and Democrats on it. And it basically makes it as easy to open a tattoo store as what it is to open a liquor store right now, because we have some antiquated laws.
What is the problem with this whole business of tattoos?
This was written in the 90s by Democrats and has held up since then. But so there's little things that says no tattooing above the collarbone. So let's say, my wife wants to get the less than 3 symbol behind her ear. So whenever she's fixing her hair, she can see it, but she's not outwardly showing a tattoo all the time.
Right.
You can't do that in South Carolina because the government says, I know what's best, and you shouldn't be able to put tattoos on this part of your body. That's not even the one that bothers me the most. The one that bothers me the most is they make it to where we pretty much have, and sorry for anybody that owns a tattoo studio, but pretty much in South Carolina, we have trashy tattoo studios because of this law. This law states that you cannot do tattoos and piercings in the same facility. You cannot do tattoos. You can't sell the cream or any merchandise or like the canvas tattoo up in Noda. They have an art gallery. The tattoo artists actually draw paintings and they sell the paintings. And so it's everything revolves around art, and it's more high end. But you're talking about artists that are making 6 figures a year. They're charging $200 an hour. They're booked out for 6 months.
Right.
And yet we can't have that in South Carolina because of the way our laws are written.
I wonder what the intent was behind some of these things.
To eliminate the tattoo studios. But think about it. In the 90s, I would say that would be the boomer generation, and they're looking at like the Hells Angels and everyone else getting tattoos as this rough crowd. However, with Gen X coming up, tattoos with Gen X and younger is part of our culture. Not everyone has them, but everyone kind of respects them. Now, I'm not saying face tattoos and everything else. Maybe that's the younger generation. But with us, I've got 3 tattoos on my arm that honor my son. Mm-hmm. I've got one for epilepsy on my arm. Like I've got the Christian cross. I've got the Crusaders cross. Like I put all those things. These are my personal stories, stuff that I want to see.
Yeah.
But in South Carolina, that's one of the problems. And the other problem is there's a distance requirement. Well, if you're opening a liquor store and you're too close to a church or a school, that church or school can sign off and say, nah, that's fine. We don't believe it's going to be a problem. But with a tattoo studio, they don't give that option.
That's
so
wild.
therefore, it just makes it to where they can't open up in places to where it's ending the free will.
Yeah.
Now, whether it's going to get hurt or not, I don't know. But I've got a few more signers added onto it. But I would love for it. That's $38.91.
Okay.
So for all you legislators out there listening, look at that. It's just an unfair target on one particular type of business. And the only reason I know about it is because whenever I was looking at it on the county level through our zoning rules,
Yep.
Counties can still have stricter rules. So if you don't want them in your county, you can increase that distance requirement
Right.
further than what the state has,
Yeah,
or if a city can do that.
You can have local planning zoning.
Right. But this is saying the state as a whole, because what happens if you look at Myrtle Beach, you've got all these tattoo studios sit in this industrial area. And what happens is because they can't do piercings and tattoos at the same place, they put a tattoo store on one end, they put a piercing place on the other end of a strip mall, and then they'll put in a vape shop, a head shop, or, a wannabe wings in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And everyone's hanging out at this one place, and it's in an industrial area. It's not the best environment.
Yeah.
And we have some great artists that are working in Georgia and North Carolina because they can't make a living the way that they need to in South Carolina.
Man, I can see a re-election campaign right now, airboats and tattoos, get some,
I could see it. In the
Just-
county, it
just
was
to talk
chickens and
about-
tattoos, right?
Yeah, just to talk about Guffey's contrarian DNA. Literally, we passed something about airboats, and Guffey, there was one phrase in there. You're like,
No, it wanted to ban airboats being used on the Broad River.
yeah. Well,
And I'm
first
like,
off,
why are we picking one river to say where you can't operate an airboat?
well, because
Wrong.
safety, you can't, all the rocks and stuff.
If I want to be a dumbass and put an airboat
Correct.
in a rocky river, then that's my own problem.
Yeah.
But that's not the government's right. I think I was the only Republican or Democrat to vote against that.
It was unanimous until.
And I think Tommy Pope was being the speaker at the time. And whenever I voted no, he called out and he's like, is that Ralph Norman or Brandon Guffey over there? And I'm like, why are we banning airboat?
Yeah.
That and a preemption bill. I voted against, me and Cody Mitchell voted against it.
The preemption bill.
It was a preemption bill about taking away or saying that municipalities can stop, they can ban vape shops and things like that, or saying that they can't ban certain types of businesses.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that should be a local government's decision.
I think I was there.
Yeah.
I was the same way. I
Yeah.
was like, and that's.
Well, I don't think you were there that day whenever we took
okay.
that vote, but I know
That
me
came
and
out of our-
Cody
Yeah, that came out of our.
were the
community.
only two, I think, that voted against it.
For the two listeners out there, when it comes to local stuff like that, I pretty much vote for home rule. I'm always.
I am, except for like
generally speaking.
Now,
I'm always like,
the
man,
bill
can't
I'm-
the local government deal with that? Like, if it's an issue, let the city council, let the county council deal with it.
So what say you on this sign issue? Do you not feel like that is suppressing political free speech?
What, the one that we're dealing with
Yeah.
over in Clover right now?
Because that's what I'm filing is going to be a preemption bill.
Oh, here
And
we go.
the-
Government overreach.
Yeah, but the reason being is that was language that was put in by a consulting group that was hired by the county during the recode. And we're talking about a book, a massively thick book.
Yep.
And
And someone
you're-
missed it probably.
Yeah, and it's something that you're not realizing that this changed, and nowhere else is anyone interpreting this as political signs except for in York County. But the same consulting group has been working with
My
other
first-
municipalities.
My first path to the solution would be to go to the governing body who posted that or passed that.
But
Right.
let's say in Beaufort,
Yep.
they just enforce it, but there's no will by the governing body to stop it. Wrong is wrong,
Then-
that's taking away the political free speech
Right. So
of
this is what
candidates.
This is what I would say. I would make a big deal about it enough to where voters selected new members of the county council to vote to change that law.
So what if a local municipality wanted to literally suppress your speech or ban guns completely?
We're
If they want to ban guns completely in a city.
But you're talking about constitutional rights now.
But I believe political speech is a constitutional right, or the freedom of speech that way.
So I would make I'd play the inside-outside game. I would go to the existing county council, the county manager.
I mean, if it would have been my sign, I would have just filed a lawsuit.
Yeah. I would,
and said, I'm going to have the courts set the precedent on this.
The issue in the press. You can do inside game, talking to staff, talking to those elected officials. Like, hey, y'all missed this here. We need to fix it, and we need to fix it now. I would go to...
But just getting it fixed doesn't mean that it's not going to get changed back, and that's the reason that you would file a lawsuit to set the precedent, to have it written.
Yeah, that's right. That is...
Forever there. And I think that's already been done in South Carolina.
Right.
But you got to pay attorneys to go through and pull all that stuff up,
and
too.
Again, it's a deliberative, process, and it,
And
it sucks
I don't...
because it's an election year.
I don't think...
Sensitive. So.
And by some of the messages, I don't think that...
Speaking of, what are you hearing about that? Like, what is the solution? Have you heard?
I think the solution is just kind of changing it up a little bit to ensure that the political signs are not that under 4 feet rule, especially whenever you're counting front and back.
And at least giving...
And I'm perfectly fine if you said 30 days before or 30 days after an election,
Correct.
Or 30 days before an election, and then you got, maybe a week to get them up afterwards.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Right.
At any time.
Yeah.
But the parent that has a senior in high school and they're getting the sign with the kid, and you're telling them they can't put this in their yard, if they don't have an HOA, county of all people, a municipality, maybe they're going to be a little bit more oppressive. But a county government should never be that oppressive.
Right. Well,
that's like the county telling you can't have chickens.
Yeah. Same county.
Same county.
Yeah, so you see those signs are popular now, especially springtime rolling around, graduation. You always see Gamecock bound. You never see those Clemson ones. But, they write those in on the back of boxes and fat crayons.
We just cut it in the grass.
Again, kidding, Clemson. Kidding. But yeah, I mean, but have you talked to the county folks?
I have. I've talked to
a
couple. Well, I've had a couple of the council members reach out. I actually spoke to staff, and I didn't get into it too much with staff because I don't want it. I've often said it. If you get involved in local politics, it's like commenting on your in-laws' food. Thanks, Don Chapman, for that.
Yep.
For that analogy to use, but it is. It's never going to end up well. So I don't want to get involved with that, but at the same time, I want to be able to protect our rights.
Yeah, correct.
And this is an overstep. And I do believe the council members, and I know everyone wants to say, oh, well, this one particular council member made the rule. That's not the case. This wasn't like thrown in just for that, because I think this one particular council member is also having the same issue.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think there's a will to get this fixed. And a lot of times people realize I was on council whenever we did Recode. So I voted for this. But it's impossible to know everything. But that's also the reason that we said we were setting up the committee to review. And as soon as we start seeing these issues, we can make the changes quickly.
Yeah, right.
And that's the ultimate goal.
And not have to go through a whole new policy.
Yeah. Now, it would be different if someone's up there saying, nope, this is perfectly right. Then, yeah, I'm going to go toe-to-toe and fight for it.
Right.
But I believe that there is, the understanding that this crosses the line.
What are they doing as far as the enforcement right now?
I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything. I know signs started going back out, even some of the signs that are not there. But I think on private property, you really can't do anything.
Yeah.
I don't think so. But like I said, I would handle things a lot differently than some of these citizens that will call and complain about it.
Mm-hmm. It was one person, right?
Well, evidently, one of the council members got one too.
Oh, really?
Got a letter or an email as well. Like I said, I don't care if it's 1, I don't care if it's 10. Bottom line is wrong.
Yeah.
If one person's told they can't have chickens in York County, then I've got a problem with it. Like, this should be your property rights. You're not living in an HOA.
I got to get you a T-shirt.
Now, I did wear it's a funny story. Might be a little inappropriate, but it's hilarious, though.
All right, parents.
I bought, whenever we were fighting to get chickens in York County, I ended up looking for a tie. And I was trying to find chickens.
I remember this time.
And I couldn't I couldn't find one that I liked. And then I started seeing all these Gamecock ties. So I just Googled cock tie. Don't ever do that. That is a whole nother term you don't want to Google.
There we go.
My first judiciary meeting.
We're working on a new reel right now.
my first judiciary meeting, I'm sitting there and I started talking, and another freshman that's sitting across.
When Google searches go wrong.
Yeah.
What was that Dave Chappelle skit where keeping it real?
Yeah. Where keeping it real goes wrong.
That's right.
But no, and then I have another freshman send me a message, and it's like, "Are you wearing a cock tie in judiciary?" And I'm like, "It's the only one that matched the green blazer."
Yeah, right. Yep.
So, and then of course I had to say, "Do not Google that."
Yeah.
That is not how you find a game or a chicken tie. Make sure you stick to chicken or rooster.
Well, in other things this week, we got House Bill 4866, and that is
Lawson's bill.
Yeah, sponsored by a Porch Caucus member, Brian Lawson, out of Cherokee County, Spartanburg County. And that is I think they call it the Smart Heart Bill.
Smart Heart Act.
Yep. And basically it's saying that in any sort of athletic event, right?
Within our schools, that we make sure that
private,
there's
a defibrillator.
Correct.
Trained personnel.
Because we're seeing an increase. It's funny, over the past 3 years, not funny at all, but we are seeing an increase, and people just dying of heart attacks at a very young age.
Yep.
And we won't get into why that is and cause a bunch of issues, but I think few of us have our own opinions on that.
That is for the conspiracy theory episode.
I don't think it's conspiracy, but yeah. We've also got the Convention of States for a Balanced Budget coming for judiciary, which is Speaker Merle Smith's bill. And that is requesting for a Convention of States and forcing Congress to stay within a balanced budget and sticking it only to that subject. A lot of people are scared of a Convention of States because it could open up and change the Second Amendment, change the First Amendment.
Right.
But this is stating that we only want to open it up and stick to the balanced budget.
That's amazing.
And then we've got the ad hoc liability coming up, which I don't think we've got enough time to get into that, but I'm not happy with the narrative that's coming out about that.
Well, and it's not so much, and you're going to be able to get into that. That would come before judiciary, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you'll be able to be.
I'll be able to dig into it instead of making some comments about the way that I view it right now without talking to the author of the bill and without talking with the supporters, because there's quite a few people that I typically agree with that are on there as supporters, but I completely disagree with the way I'm interpreting.
This is about creating a fund, right, for victims?
Yes, which I see as a total way of growing the government. You're either A, increasing taxes to fund this, or B, you are growing government and you're backing up insurance companies to keep people's rates low. How about we just drop that $1 million liability minimum, which started many of these problems?
Right.
Or how about we start tort reform? How about someone talk to Mr. Mulligan?
I tell you, man.
It seems like there's a simple change.
And I talked about this, I think, last episode, how I walked into the wrong room at the Palmetto Club and Mulligan was speaking about the tort reform. And that's in the Senate right now. And I tell you, I don't see why it's so difficult.
And I know I'm not an attorney, and everyone says, everyone wants tort reform until it's your loved one that dies in a car. No, I still want tort reform.
Me too.
I mean, there should only be, there's only 100% of liability.
Yeah.
And it's trying to figure out where that is. Even in my case of me suing Google. Yeah, I mean, me suing Meta. I could even agree with that. Like, what is the share of the percentage? If the value's this and this is the share of the percentage, then let's stick to that. But, I'm not seeing it. And that's very difficult, and I understand, because you don't want someone getting screwed over because someone didn't have the correct insurance on their car. But that's not the entire state's responsibility to back that up. That's not to increase our taxes, even if you're increasing them on just alcohol in general. And as they say, DUI. Well, you're automatically guilty if you refuse to blow, and then you have to go to court.
they
to fight
suspend
it.
your
So
blow into the breathalyzer.
I can tell you whether I've been drinking or not. I'm not blowing in a breathalyzer. If you pull me over and ask me to blow, I'm not going to blow. I'm never going to take the chance of anything like that. And yet, you know, we have people that get found guilty on things like that. And you're talking about charging them more money.
Well, and I think one of the questions that I asked one of the members of the AHEC is who pays for, basically, it sounds like we're creating like unemployment insurance. There's going to be sort of a victims
Do we have that now?
fund type thing where you're paying for a policy that would cover victims' losses. My question is, how do we pay for that, right? And that's what you and I were talking about offline is, okay, are we raising taxes on when you go to buy a beer at a bar? You see what I'm saying? And that's what
But I don't think that is our job
I'm not
as
saying
government.
right or wrong. I'm trying to give the two listeners an understanding of the issue. I don't know why we're not just addressing tort reform, you know, the whole thing.
I mean, from what Mr. Mulligan sounded like is there's just a little bit of language change.
Yeah,
that could correct it.
The tort
that
feeser
correct
versus defendant, whatever it was. And,
yeah,
right.
And to be fair, and I think we had this conversation via text. I'm trying to take the approach, and I don't know how many people that we sit in there, it's just out of the 124, know what it's like to be sitting out and working in 90-plus degree weather for 8 to 10 hours a day, sweating your tail off, barely getting by, trying to raise a family. And every time we're looking at something like this, the question I have to ask is, can I go up to that person and say, I need a little bit of your money for this?
Right.
And if I'm having to do that and I can't explain it to that person, then why am I adding it? And that becomes my push-pull. Now, yeah, it might be very hard for the family who lost a loved one.
Right.
But at the same time, that's not our job. And for us to be the representatives to make the decision for everyone in the state to have to pay for this. And I could be wrong. We'll see how it goes once we get out of judiciary. And then the other thing that we have throughout these bills, we've got in education and public works. Very quickly, we've got one that I think is interesting from Rivers. It's number 4709, and that is to require cursive.
Yeah.
In K through 12. So, you know, most of our founding fathers, those documents are written in cursive. So we don't want to lose the ability for kids to be able to understand what those documents say.
When did they stop handwriting class?
I don't have a clue.
It
seems like there's
the 3-lined handwriting paper.
Yeah.
You used to get back in grade school, and I don't know.
I mean,
why.
they don't even teach typing anymore. Like
Really?
and typing, like if you watch kids on a keyboard, they don't know the proper placement and how to type. They're quicker on their phone with thumbs than they are on a keyboard.
Right.
And then we've got one more bill, 5105. Which says technical colleges work with Veterans Affairs to ensure the credits work or coincide with one another, so that way you're not taking credits and then not getting credit for it in the technical college. But I think that's about it. Did we hit swatting? We hit the Ruby Slipper. We hit My Week. We hit mental health, convention of states, ad hoc tattoos, requiring cursive, veteran affairs for credits. We hit Lawson Smart Hard Act, judicial reform.
How's your week looking as far as, I know I got a 3M full committee meeting Tuesday, hour and a half after adjournment. I then also have a business, commerce, and administrative subcommittee of the House Regs. And it looks like that agenda is just peppered with state election commission stuff, balloting, certifying.
I do have an election bill.
So I got to start digging into some of that. I mean, man, I don't know if that is, we're looking at clarifying language or just striking old regs that are,
Well, I've got a big problem with the election since we changed it up. And I actually took a picture of this whenever I was voting. It's a do's and don'ts. But according to this, it's saying, that a candidate representative must be 500 feet outside of the area.
Right.
I don't think that changed. But one of the problems that I really had, and the reason I did file a bill, is called electioneering. People should not be holding the door for other candidates, because during this last race, we had numerous complaints, and this wasn't something made up. Because
now, it's regarding folks who support you.
Right, and and the idea sounds great. Like, just open the door. Such and such thanks you for voting today. However, many people felt intimidated by that, and there were signs where they would open the door for one person and close it before the next person got there, and wait to get through their spiel before they would open the door. So people felt intimidated. Like, that should never be a situation.
Yeah, and so
if you're already walking into the poll, there's no reason. Like, I can understand the candidate being there to say, "Hey, if you have any questions, I'm here to answer."
So did you do any of that on election day?
No.
Okay.
I did on county council, but I didn't walk up to the door. I was standing 200 feet away with a sign and just waving at people as they went by.
I was opening the door. All right, so you didn't do this, during the last election. You
No, and I typically bounce around to the different polling places and check numbers, and that allows me to see some people here and there. But I feel it's sleazy.
Hey man,
to
so being new
ask
to
for
this,
a vote as they're coming into the poll, I feel like that is intimidating.
So being new to this, I was made aware that you can, as a candidate, stand at the door and open the door.
Yes.
And I'm like,
you just can't ask for their vote.
I was like, no, come on, that there's no way that's legal. And yep, sure enough, it is. And they said, yeah, it's a way, especially for new folks running for office.
And you can wear a small badge.
So I didn't wear a badge or anything.
Yeah.
All I did was, for maybe 30 minutes, I'd go and just open the door and say, hey, thanks for coming out to vote. I didn't even introduce myself.
Right. And that's the way I would do it.
And and no one knew who I was. So that's the great part about being sort of anonymous and new to politics, was they actually thought I worked for
the polling place.
Yeah, right.
But that becomes the problem with a lot of these people that are going to vote, and people are guarding the doors. And whenever I called the election office on this, after getting numerous calls, and these people were already calling, like the situation I had in Laurel Creek, I got phone calls from the poll workers saying they're not doing anything about this. I got phone calls from one of a local doctor that was furious that, people were out there in front of the door. Yeah. Right? So, the police.
So what's your bill say?
Well, it just stops that.
Okay.
There shouldn't be any of that. And my argument became with the elections officer.
You got to be 200 feet away? You can hold a sign, but that's it.
Yeah. I mean, sit there and hold a sign if you want to, as people are coming in to say, hey, go vote. But you should not be harassing anyone whenever they're coming into a poll.
No.
And the same thing should be said for coming out of the poll.
Yep. So footnote on that, that whole thing, I had a personal experience where I was opening the doors for people, thanking them for coming out to vote. There was actually one lady with a kid who, I guess, recognized me, and I don't know how she recognized me, but maybe she's just follows campaigns and elections. But she straight up asked me, "I can't believe you're sitting here at the door," and I said, "Well, as the candidate, I'm just opening the door, thinking because I said to her, hey, thanks for coming out to vote."
Yeah.
And she said, "Yeah, but I don't think you should be here." And I said, "You know what? I don't totally disagree with you." I said, and if you feel
there's an intimidation factor
if
there.
you feel that way, that's not my intent. And so she sort of stormed off. She was a little irritated. But to her credit, after she voted and came out, she said, and she had her daughter, like a kid, with her. So I was like, really? But she did say, hey, you know what? Sorry, I just wasn't expecting the candidate to be here at a polling place.
Yeah.
But, you were being respectful and nice. I shouldn't have hollered at you the way I did. I said, no, it's fine. It ain't the worst I've heard.
Yeah.
So, but
Well, it's not so much the candidates that's the problem with me, because a candidate can only be at one location at one time.
Right.
But whenever you're putting together these armies to stand out and hold the door like that, whenever the complaints would come in, the election officer say, this is not intimidation. And I'm saying, you've got people calling you, telling you that they feel intimidated, And yet you're saying this is not intimidation. Right. They're like, yeah. I said, so if I hired Hell's Angels to stand in front of every polling position and said, Brandon Guffey thanks you for voting today.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be intimidating? Well, yeah, it would. Well, why? Because one looks scarier than the other? What about the woman walking in and you got a man sitting there with a beard and, like, you don't think she feels intimidated by that?
Well, can the Hell's Angels, do they have, are they holding a 2x4 treated along?
No.
Okay.
Just vest, straight tattoos. Okay. I mean, if you're going to represent Guffey, you got to show them tats, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, that just gets to my point. Or let's go back to the Malcolm X days. What if you had like the Islam Nation? I mean, they're all dressed in suits, black and white, no problem there. But people would view that as intimidation.
Yeah. I think you saw that. I think you've seen that.
Just because it's members of your church that you got out there doing it doesn't mean that it's not intimidation.
Well, and to that point, I'm fine with not even allowing candidates to do it.
Yeah.
I really, man, I was just like,
well, the bill just bans it from everyone else except for candidates, but I'm fine with that. We had to define it as electioneering, and that just started whenever we changed the election laws.
I'm about to say, when did that change?
And some of the distance requirements are a little crazy. I think it went from 200 to 500 feet. 200 feet is too close in some areas, but I do like the little map that has the circle drawn around it.
Yeah.
And to be fair, everyone that's working at poll, they are just a volunteer in the community. They've all got their personal opinion. They might be, big Democrats and don't really care for Republicans, so they might come down hard on you and like, you can't have signs here. But they're hard on everyone. They might be hard Republicans and they're allowing people to wear something in that they shouldn't.
Yeah.
None of that makes it right. We should just have simple rules. And I never get mad at a poll worker.
No, not at
because
all.
Because they're just trying to do the best that they can.
How was your experience voting on Saturday? I had my box was closed.
Mine was too, and I didn't know until I showed up.
So and that was one of the reasons why I posted on the my political Facebook page. Hey, go check SC Votes. There is their homepage that you can check. Put in your address and you can check your polling place.
And
because we got redirected from Grace Lutheran over to Sullivan Middle.
Yeah.
But I tell you, I had 6-7 people in front of us. Took my son Ben with us. But it was a pleasant experience. It was, they give you photo ID. They give you your ballot.
You get to see who you voted for.
You go to the machine. You vote for your whatever. And then there was a couple of questions. That first question regarding...
Oh, that was intentionally
the closed primary one?
Yeah.
I got
It didn't say that it's closed primaries. It was more or less like, do you think people should be able to register with the party? Which, of course, you're going to have 86% agreement. If you said, do you think that you should be required to register with a party, then I don't see that getting the same
there's
support.
A way that maybe a solution for that is that, if you're a Democrat in a Democratic primary, Republicans can't vote in the
if you are registered.
Correct.
And I would be fine with that.
Maybe that's a way to do it to where
But if you're not registered, you should be able to vote in whichever primary you choose.
If you're an independent, and I think across this country, that's the largest political identification. It's like
the argument is well, if you're more independent, then you should just vote independent in an independent primary. So, and we haven't had multiple candidates running as an independent.
I'm not an attorney, but you're getting into people's constitutional rights.
That is the government telling you who you cannot vote for.
And
if you're giving up your right to vote for one person, then why are you?
So maybe that's a part, maybe a solution there. Where
this
Democrats
also goes
feel the integrity of their primaries are still protected, and Republicans feel the same way that, hey, we don't want to exclude folks who aren't card-carrying members of said party, but we also, you want to be welcoming to independents.
Well, we only get 10% of the people showing up as is right now.
Yeah, did you see Neil Collins posted about that? Yeah, literally, I think it was a total of 17% of the voting population voted in the primary. Or votes in elections.
I can see it, and that's on president.
Smokes, man.
That's on a presidential race.
Yeah, and
and those are the ones that people show up to.
And Neil's a really
so
smart
everyone
guy.
to think that like elections are being stolen is
Yeah,
it through Republicans voting in Democratic primaries or Democrats voting in Republican primaries. I don't agree with that. Does it happen? Yes, it does. Even Donald Trump said it in 2016. It popped up on my memory yesterday from him. I think it was the Rock Hill rally. One of the things he said was get out and vote in the Democratic primary. So don't play victim whenever you're saying Democrats are coming out and voting for my opponent.
Yeah, so Neil Collins he also teaches at the local college in his district. He said after both presidential primaries, only 25% of registered voters voted. That's only 17% of all people. Trump won the most votes with 14% of registered voters voting for him.
Right.
That's 8% of the total population. So you literally have 17%.
If you're getting that 10% mark,
votes
you're usually good.
Deciding.
So our districts are 42,000. If you get 4,000 votes, you win.
Yeah. And that's 10, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the whole
I'm
idea.
all for. I liked that we did it on a Saturday.
I did that. I did
right?
like that.
And I do like our early voting. You know, I like how we.
Well, Merle's got a bill to open those hours.
Yeah.
I think coming up at Fort Benning.
Here in York County, we had a box in Clover, we had a box in York, box in Rock Hill, and a box in Fort Mill.
But people need to realize this either costs taxpayers money to set this up, or we require the volunteers, or a combination of both. And the reason we had so many polls closed is because we didn't have enough workers.
We don't have the staff.
We don't have the staff. So then whenever we start talking about let's go to 100% paper ballots, imagine the staff that it takes to go through that.
Yeah.
What I did like, and that was a question because I could never remember, whenever we went in to vote, does it actually show me what I voted
Absolutely
on the piece of
You
paper,
can read
or
it.
was it just a barcode where I had to scan that barcode to see?
Nope.
Well, I feel a whole lot more comfortable seeing my name at the top, seeing
Yes.
exactly how I voted, and it going into a box for safekeeping. So if I think the machines are lying about the numbers, we can call an audit and we can hand count at
And
that
that
time.
already happens now.
Yeah.
That happens. So there is
In South Carolina.
Yes, in state of South Carolina, there is sample audits every election. They go back and hand count to make sure the machine count matches. And if it doesn't, guess what? It then requires further investigation and further audit.
Yeah.
So
And
that happens now. This whole thing of paper balloting, again, that sounds great. Like, I think it's clickbait. I mean, it really, oh yeah, humans should count all this stuff. Oh, okay, so in 2 weeks, when you find out that the president or the candidate that was running for president didn't win, what are you going to say? Man, that's fraud, man. It was stolen. You see what I'm saying? Like the state of Florida,
and that's been going on since the early 2000s.
The state of Florida
Bush.
did a great job of how they handled this past election as far as off-year elections.
Now,
I mean, they reported unofficial results by what, 9, 10 o'clock?
Yeah.
While Nevada or Arizona was taking.
I mean, but I don't know if you've seen this, but there's actual court cases of people in Florida in court that were hired during the Bush governor years to like introduce these machines so they could, under their own testimony, so that they could influence the elections. So the people that are complaining about machines, I get it. I understand. What I'm saying is we got to have a checks and balances. And until we can say, hey, this number's way off, and once we do, and we see that this machine's infected, that entire company should be sued for allowing this breach to begin with.
I think everybody is all about the integrity of our election systems. Right. I think, just this whole thing of machines suck. No. It's ones that are connected to the internet and those types of things. You know what I mean? So
I mean, I blame my computer every time I have user error. Too.
Every time I have a Teams
shut it down and restart it, as my grandmother said.
Or a Zoom meeting, and I'm 3 or 4 minutes late. It's like, damn it, update. Or why does it say paper jam when there is no paper jam? So anyway, all right, man. Well, we'll get back to work this week and have fun with it.
We'll see how it goes. And I don't know if I said it, but I know I'm dressed down today. But this sweatshirt's actually one of the things that Gavin bought for me.
Hey, man.
And it
I
says,
love the Wu-Tang stuff because
during political years, especially, you'll see like all of these political signs, and then some prankster has put out
Wu-Tang.
Presidents are temporary, Wu-Tang is forever. And I'm like, yes.
And that's on my sweatshirt right now. And it was something that Gavin bought. That's one of the big stickers we have on the side of the bus.
I think I sent that to you. I was over at Hickory Post the other day.
Yeah.
And went down in the basement, go check out their vinyl. And 36 Chambers, Wu-Tang.
Yes. I do want to bring up one thing as we close out, and I want our listeners to do this. Number one, please follow, like, subscribe on whichever channel that you are following us on. I understand some of you don't like how long it is. The great thing about podcasts is that you can start it and stop it at any time.
Yeah.
So you've got a full week of time that you have the opportunity to listen to it. That's the reason I would rather not cut us off. Because we never know what's going to actually people are going to be listening to. But also, I would like some way, and I don't know if we, perhaps our producer can tell us with the comments. I want to know how many of you, whenever it come to the questions, you had 1, 2, 3. Number 3 was essentially tort reform, so of course I was a yes on that.
Yeah.
Number 2 is about judicial reform. I mean, we have already kind of in the solution on that, so what's the point? But it's on there. And then number 1 was really confusing because it was really close primary. So if the question was, you are required to register for a political party in order to vote in that primary, and if you voted in the previous primary of the opposite party, you will not be able to vote. Are you okay with that?
Right. So we walk out. My wife says, I didn't understand that question.
And most people just vote yes.
I just voted yes.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, that's the closed primary. And she was like, well, what is that?
Yeah.
And I told her, and I said, well, again, each party is trying to protect the integrity of their primary. The issue is, what do independents do? Right?
Right.
What do independents do during primaries? And some folks would be happy with saying independents shouldn't vote in a Republican primary or a Democratic primary. I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not either. Because they want to pick the best candidate so they can.
Right.
And say your favorite candidate ends up on let's say Tulsi Gabbard's running.
Yeah.
I like Tulsi Gabbard a lot. But let's say you got Mitt Romney on the Republican side.
Right.
I'm going to vote for Tulsi Gabbard over Mitt Romney. Right. I would vote in a Democratic primary for Gabbard before I voted in a Republican primary for Romney.
Or in a race where you have multiple candidates for different positions, where say your sheriff's a Democrat, your solicitor's a Republican. Does that mean that you can't vote for the sheriff? That you see what I'm saying?
You can't. I mean, right now you can't. You have to choose Republican, Democrat, so you got to support which candidate you like the best.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was poorly worded. What was the results on those?
Oh, I don't have a clue. I didn't look.
Okay.
The only reason I said that 86%, because we were told whenever I went to the party, 86% of South Carolinians want closed primaries. So you got to follow this. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Let's do some of that math that Neil Collins did.
Right.
86% of the people who answered a skewed question on a presidential election that was only 10% of the people voting.
Yeah.
Maybe. And if you're not scared of the results, how about make the question understandable and let people vote?
Right. That's right.
And we don't have to put this stuff on question. You elect each one of us as representatives.
Poorly worded.
As well. Yeah. And if you want to put it on the ballot, I'm fine with the people choosing on any of these issues.
Absolutely.
Put it on a referendum.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right. Thank you all for joining us today. And I don't know what he's pointing at, but yeah.
Telling you to tell the camera bye.
All right. Bye, camera.
Yeah, thanks for listening. See y'all next week. Thanks to our sponsors, Comer Distributing and 742 North.
Yes.
Everybody have a good, safe week. And
our great beer, Springs Golf Lager.
Springs Golf.
By more artists.
Yeah. Man, it's good. I know it's not like your favorite Bud Light, but,
It was light. I mean, it's fine with me.
Yeah, man. All right, have a good week.
Thank you, bud. Come on.
Football star, maybe president.